Hello, this is Paul, and today we'll be working on day 3 for Advent of Code. So this day, the first part asks for a solution in finding how many houses have been visited. Well, the actual question is how many houses receive at least one present, but the idea between getting a present means that the house is visited. Visiting houses is a way of reading the instructions which are in the data file, and the instructions, as you can see, are pretty interesting. I mean, it's not something that you usually use, but they are representing the directions that the person has to go, so north, south, east and west, and they have specific symbols for that. So in general, what we need to have is we need a grid, because this is a two-dimensional data, x and y coordinates. We need a grid to assign these values. I mean, we can also assign which house gets how many presents, but in general we don't really care about that. We care only about, for the first part, we care about how many houses receive the presents, or in the other words, it's how many houses have been visited. So let's start working with this. We have this data and we can see that it's only in one line, which means that when reading it, we just read it into a variable and then simply iterate it to get a character by character cycles. So simply enough, we read the data, we exit the file opening, and the file closes now automatically. That's the Python syntax. I mean, that's some kind of traits that Python has, and we just iterate if each character, and we see what we can do with it. So we need a data structure to save the values, and for this case I think that my solution for this is a bit of straightforward, but then again it's not a two-dimensional, it's not a matrix in Python, it's not an array inside an array, but it's a bit different. It's a simple array, and each element in an array has a tuple, and this tuple has two values, the x and y coordinates. And what I do with these coordinates is just I use all the I read all the instructions. After each instruction, I save the tuple of coordinates into the array. And when I want to know how many houses have been visited, I can just simply convert it to a set, which means that we get unique values. A set is like a unique value array. So let's try to implement this kind of solution. So what we need is let's call it a variable visits, a simple array. Then let's simply read what kind of direction we need. For this, I'll be definitely using a separate function. Let's define it above. Get coordinates, and we just pass the character. Let's just call it C. And currently let's just leave it like this and finish the main cycle for reading. So we simply append a new tuple for a specific coordinate by giving it the character from the data. So what we have here, we have we'll have like the visits array will be as big as the length of data. And in the end, we just want to print the length of the set of visits, which this means Visits is our array, which might have like duplicate values like coordinates 0, 0, and so on. By converting it into a set, we get unique values. That means that there's no duplicates, there's only unique values, and we get the same array just with unique values. And finally, we just want to know how many elements are there in the set, so which means that we read the length of the set. So this, let's just like make it more readable by adding an extra line for that. This should sort of work because the implementation is quite clear. If it doesn't work, we'll just analyze why and start to debug and think what kind of errors we do. So let's start implementing the logics behind understanding what kind of coordinate we need. Oh right, I totally forgot one part. That so since we start from x being 0 and y being 0, we should probably just give x and y 2, which is I mean, there can be probably better solutions for this, but what this means that we simply give the starting position and we move throughout the data, given data in some kind of grid, and we just need to get exact absolute values instead of relative points. So let's just start implementing what we want to see in the final form, which is understanding if the character is a uppercase. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how actually the symbol is called, but let's call it the power of symbol. Else if the C is a symbol V, or just letter V, which means going down. I'll just implement the logics later, but I'll just start with the conditional sentences just to be like show that I've finished the higher level structure. So going to left is one sentence, and finally going right is another sentence. Sorry. And what we return is a tuple, x and y. Tuple is, syntax-wise, it's simply with two clauses, two variables inside of it, delimited by a comma sign. So let's decide that it doesn't really matter. It's how do we decide where the positive and the negative x is and where the positive and negative y is, but let's use the most common sense, which is y is going top, the positive one, and going bottom is negative y, and for x going right is going positive and going left is negative. So each of these for each of these characters there's only one change for a specific coordinate, either x or y. So this means that for this example we just increase it by 1 when it's going up, and we just leave x the same. When going down we decrease it by 1. When going left we use x and we leave y without any changes, and we decrease it because it's going left, and x is increased when it's going to the right. So we get these tuples, we append them, and we get a huge list, a huge array. So let's see if the code runs, and if it doesn't, we'll just investigate what's happening. So it says 4. which sort of isn't the answer, and we can try understanding what's the problem with that. Let's first see what actual values we get. Right, I already know what the problem is. So the problem is that we get a bit different data, and we shouldn't put everything in one line, as it doesn't make difference for this. We just need to have x and y to read the tuple, and then just inside of it we should I will leave the same way, reading the tuple and then reading it into two variables, because that way we just get simply the result for specific x and y in a tuple, and it's still useful. We just remove the tuple and then make it. It's not a good practice, but in general it shouldn't hurt too much. So that's another answer, and it seems that's the same. That is the answer for this part. So the error that I made was I forgot to change the values for each cycle, which means that it's always stayed 0 and 0, and getting an answer for means that it only visited the houses in the top, in the bottom, in the top, in the bottom, to the left and to the right. Now when I think about it, since it started from 0, yes, it should have started with some additional implementation, because we didn't add the initial position, which started with a 0, 0 house. In general, if there's a lot of data, and it most likely hit the 0, 0 several times, but this is also a bug in our code, because this means that actually if the data is only hitting it once, the coordinates 0 and 0, it won't count the initial 0, 0, well, previously when I didn't have the append function for the array. So yeah, we can double check it. It shows the same answer for that, but that's another problem that I didn't see beforehand. Okay, so this is the part 1. Let's watch what's the next part. So the description is that there's Robo Santa who delivers the presents for the Santa, and this helps to simply distribute the problem for 2 persons. So Santa and Robo Santa start at the same location, but they take turns moving based on instructions. So it means that they read one after another. So let's say it doesn't really matter who starts where, but I suppose that it's better to understand Santa starts at one house, and the next instruction is for the Robo Santa, and the third instruction is for Santa, and so on. So what we have here is a bit different, and we can use the same solution for the part 2, but with several changes. So we get the coordinates for the character, and it doesn't really matter what coordinates we get. We change them accordingly. So a pretty straightforward and dirty way means that we use additional, we call it x for Santa and y for Santa, and x for Robo, which also starts with 0, and y for Robo. There can be a better solution for that, because like if there's 5 people that run on these instructions, then the amount of variables will be quite huge. But since it's only 2 and it's the part 2 which ends the problem set for day 3, we can simply ignore it without fiddling about how to optimize this kind of solution. So where we start is we can add the same place for Santa, and let's say append for X. So the thing is, it's the same problem. How many get at least one present? And so we can ignore the robo Santa as they start from the same coordinates. So we do a bit of a different solution for this. So we have character, and in the data we want to enumerate the data to understand who is who. So we get let's call it index, or just I probably really like the naming of IDX. Yeah, so we get IDX, the number, which is either odd or even. So if I is odd, let's say that we will use, it's Santa's turn to go, so we use X Santa and Y Santa for get coordinates. Just be sure to pass the right coordinates. Else, so in this case it's an odd number, which means that we'll use robo Santa, X robo, Y robo, get coordinates character, X robo, and the Y robo coordinate. And apparently we won't be able to implement this in one line. We'll just have to use it in those separately in both of them. So we just append X in a tuple, of course, X Santa and Y Santa. So what I do here is I separate the X and Y for Santa and Robo, and also whenever they visit I append the change of coordinates that they have. So in general this should, the last sentence works the same way. So what happens here is that we have 2 instances, and we have the division of like the percent symbol is for model division, and if the number is even and you model divides it by 2, there's nothing left. If you let's say you divide 3 model division 2, the result will be 1. So this means that it doesn't fulfill this condition, and it goes to the else sentence, and the robo Santa is getting the coordinates and doing its move, and of course these coordinates gets into the overall visits. Since we don't need to separate the visits, so we use the same variable for that. So let's see what do we get for that. So it's 2639, which is the answer, and it seems that we're done for today. Thank you for watching.